Good morning, everyone. It's Ollie on day 54 of the Vendeeglobe on board Toot Good. And as you can see, I'm in a complete, utter wind hole still. It's been going on for already 1.5 days, and it will keep going for another while. It just keeps expanding on top of me. And it's quite frustrating, to be fair. And it's quite stressful. Contrary to common belief, it's actually as stressful than sailing in a lot of wind. I think it's even a bit more stressful because you have to be very switched on to keep the boat moving, and there's not much rest time. At the same time, as you can see, it's very cold. It's about 3 degrees out here, but yeah, I will keep going. I will get out of this wind hole, and I will slowly and surely make my way east. Have a great day, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Hello Seawolves, and welcome back to the show. It was nice to step on board with Ollie there. Poor Ollie, we discussed it yesterday on the show. He really is very much stuck as a bug in that high pressure there along the ice exclusion line, and it doesn't look like it's going to let up anytime soon. Might be another day and a half before he gets freed, hashtag free Ollie. But nice to see that he's doing okay, and cool kind of to see that other situation where we're used to seeing them sailing very fast. But this is also reality on the course. Sometimes, like there are always exceptions, and sometimes people get stuck for days and days in really low weather and are hardly moving at all.
Hello, here we are. We're in the centre of the low. All the wind's gone. It's very shifty anyway. It's been a long, difficult night of slamming with massive wind changes in direction and speed and everything, and to try and look after the boat, which has been a little bit stressful. Had a bunch of non-vital technical issues which just take up time and energy, but it was time that we stopped slamming to make sure none of them became vital. But yes, we've probably got a few hours of trying to get through this low, then we'll be reaching out the other side going north. I'm very much looking forward to that. Looking forward to the sea state dropping as well, because it's probably hard to see on video, but it's not very comfortable, especially once you start moving. So there you go. So news from us for now. See ya.
Quite a crazy contrast, but it happens. It has to happen. Anyway, welcome back to the show. Let's, I hope you have something delicious in your, hopefully, official Seawolf mug. I got some delicious fresh coffee here. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cheers, wolves. So, some interesting news, very good that we know now that very likely the leaders are going to be arriving around the 12th to the 14th of January, they say. So about 10 or so days more. I looked it up myself, and actually to get to the point where they are now in the reverse direction, it actually took them 12 or 13 days, depending on how you look on it. So it seems about right. They're expecting them to go a little bit faster to the Sables-d'Olonne, let's say from this location, than they actually went in the other way around, which kind of makes sense based on sort of the historic and sort of how the weather goes and what part of it are more like downwind, etc. So it seems pretty good estimate. And so now you know if you want to join in France for the finish in Sables-d'Olonne, then you know somewhere around those days is when you at least need to be there. So that is good to know. Then a bit of bad news for Thomas Ruyant. He was kind of caught off guard by an exceptionally strong local squall. It was so strong that his boat broached. So that basically means that he got sort of pushed all the way over, and then the boat tends to turn nose into the wind and you get kind of pinned down. It wasn't a very long storm, but very violent, and he wasn't able to take his sails down in time, so he had to kind of take shelter inside, really wait for it to be over. And during that time, his J2 sail, which is the same sail that several other sailors also lost, but it's kind of one of the better, it's basically one of the working jibs that they're using a lot. And so it was still on board, but it was completely, totally shredded to pieces, so damaged beyond repair. So that's unfortunate for Thomas that he can no longer use that working jib to an important sail. And also he hadn't been able to use the first reef on his mainsail already for a while, do some slight damage to his mainsail track. And he was still in the process of maybe repairing that, but during that storm that also got some additional extra damage, and so he's pretty much given up on that. And so that means that for the rest of the race also he can still set the mainsail, but he can no longer set the first reef. So it's either full sails, second reef, third reef, but the first reef is not usable. So double bad news as far as the different sail options for Thomas, and especially bad since he's been doing very well on his way to kind of maybe catch up, not with the leaders, but he was kind of inching closer and closer to Sebastien Simon. Of course, we'll see in the map in a little bit. And so maybe he'll still be able to keep up the pace if the weather is kind of suited for the sails that he does have, but still a bit of a setback there for Thomas. And for the rest, everybody actually okay, same as yesterday, no major crazy damages, although the sailing is hard, so especially the group that Boris is kind of in, it's kind of tough sailing. We talked about it also yesterday, so a lot of variable winds, I just told you about Thomas, so small squalls, strong winds, a lot of wind direction changes, so tough sailing, and it stands to reason that we'll have some more of this type of sudden squalls that might do a bit more damage still in the fleet. Oh yeah, by the way, one thing. We had several, like sail hooks and several things break, and there was kind of an interesting. Were several comments yesterday, also as parts for the questions to Jean and Boris and Violet. I'm working on that, by the way. Where a few people were kind of speaking out a bit, almost like their frustration, and saying like, how is it possible that some of these teams have so much money, there's so much development going into these boats? How is it possible that so many people have sail hooks breaking, for example, right? And what is the design of this particular hook? Can we see this? Because how is it possible that so many of them are breaking? And this actually also happened in the last race. We had several sail hooks break then. So a lot of people were wondering, like, how is it possible that this stuff that seemed like a weakness also in the last race, how does it keep breaking, right? And how do we have like damages to like delamination in the hulls or structural failure, like what we saw with Sebastien Simon and things like this? No, sorry, not so, yeah. Well, Sebastien Simon foil breaks, but I mean with Lewis Burton, for example, earlier. Like, how is it that this stuff is apparently so well designed, so top of the line? How can we still have like incredible breakages like that? And I was kind of thinking a little bit about this question, and I think I can answer that in a very interesting way that will really kind of, I think, maybe change some of your very fundamental perspectives on how you watch a race like this and technology development in general. But it's a bit of a long answer, so I'll save that for tomorrow if you guys are interested. So if you want me to do tomorrow like a long sort of in-depth explanation of why, even though there's so much, like the top of the top people in the world working on the materials, the designs, like all the stuff that kind of goes in creating, these amazing, top of the line sailing machines. If you're interested to really understand why there still is all that going on, put in the comments something like, yes, explain it, or I want to know, or something like that, just to kind of gauge your interest, because if there's like enough people who put it in the comments, then I'll make like a long, and it will be a pretty cool thing, I think, for you guys all to really understand why that will continue to happen, because I think it's kind of an interesting point, and I never really seen it be made like in a very in-depth way. So that's just another thing maybe for tomorrow. Let me know in the comments if you want to hear that. Okay, so now let's dive actually into the tactical analysis. So actually, finally, a pretty good day now for the leaders, both Charlie and Yoann. The speed still isn't like earth-shatteringly fast or anything like this, that they're doing like 10 knots. But they're at least in some real substantial wind, and they're kind of past most of the area where they could really sort of get caught again, sort of in an off stream of the St. Helena High. So they're kind of, safe for now, in a good speed. They kind of made it through, which means that until they kind of get to, like the tail end of the doldrums, you can see it here a little bit, that might be an area where they will still maybe run into a little bit of a slowdown. But until there, they got some pretty clear sailing in about, well, it's a little bit lighter still now, so they're like 9 or 10 knots, but as they get more north, they'll get more and more wind, and it will keep going until they get to the real doldrums, and it will be something like 16 or 17 knots. So very good foiling conditions. Maybe, as far as the direction looks now, a slight advantage to Yoann again. So might be some, it's once again those circumstances that were a cause for some actual 24-hour records last time. And it looks like they might get similar circumstances. Maybe the wind will be slightly too low, because like 18 or 19 knots would be a little bit more ideal for those speed runs than like 15 or 16. But depending on the sea state, if everything could sort of like be exceptionally like just right, we might still get another like speed record attempt there, or at least we may see Yoann grab a little bit that advantage that also got him to be kind of in the first position coming out of the Southern Ocean. So it's like one extra chance maybe to go onto the advantage force boat there with a little bit of nice downwind sailing in relatively flatter seas, hopefully, for Yoann. So then Sebastien, still a little bit stuck around the course there, but also in a little bit more wind. But you can see VMC is 7.6 knots, so he's fully upwind sailing at the moment. And just like sort of everybody else here, very unideal circumstances, and just not easy sailing at all. If we look at the group here, kind of led by Thomas Ruyant, like I talked about, so him losing his sail, but you can see strong winds all around. The main group sort of managed to sort of ride the center. They're really trying to avoid this very strong stuff here more to the west, but maybe got a little bit unlucky again and are like in some pretty low winds. They maybe preferably would have been a little bit more on the edges to sort of have a little bit more wind, but I guess it was just kind of unavoidable. So all of them a little bit slow now, and definitely losing some miles again, both on Yoann and Charlie and Sebastien, except maybe for Thomas Ruyant, although his speed isn't also super high. So that's kind of what's going on there. Then we have still the big duel kind of going on there with Clarice Kramer and Benjamin Dutroux. So they're really keeping a very nice pace with each other. There is something going to happen, I'll show you in the routages in a second, in about a day and a half, which is very interesting. We see that Samantha, interestingly enough, fell behind again quite a bit, quite slow. She was very close to them on the Cape, but as they came out, they were just enough ahead, Clarice and Benjamin, to catch the wind a little bit more early, and they again took a little distance from Samantha there. So that's kind of interesting to see. Then we have Roman Athanasio and Damien Seguin now passing the Cape, sort of followed on their heels by Jean Le Cam, and like we've been seeing over the last few days, Jean Le Cam has gained a little bit on Roman Athanasio. His speed was a bit slow, but he was quite a bit ahead also of Damien Seguin, so he's still ahead, but he lost quite a bit of miles on Jean. Damien was actually a little bit faster, so it's kind of interesting between the three of them. Damien actually gained a little distance on Jean, but Jean gained quite a bit of distance on the person before him. So that's kind of interesting that all three of them kind of change their relative position to each other. But as you can see, Yoann in pretty strong winds, but he has a very nice fast 24 average, and that will likely continue. But now for the very interesting bit. So if we pick Yoann here and we run the routages, because the weather is so kind of variable here, sort of around this corner here on the ice gate, and look at what we got in the prediction now. So as Yoann is passing the Cape, we see again, you know, the model kind of being wrong, all the foilers quickly, picking up with Yoann, which is not going to happen. But what we also see is that both of the gens here in front are kind of running into a wind hole here right on the corner of the ice gate, and that literally all of them, boom, are going to maybe get stuck around that corner together. So that would be, and so then we would have like all of them, like look at this entire group of them, like all together in that one particular place, because they're all more or less predicted to run into just this wall of no wind. In a similar situation would happen to Ollie, which would, interestingly, for that part of the race, almost reset the entire thing, right? And so we would have ultimately kind of position 13 would be like the lowest position in this particular group. So that would be like for the winner to take, let's say, as soon as they restart again from this position. Now it's two days away, so again, it's a model, it's a prediction. It's definitely not necessarily a fact that this will happen, but this particular streak of like no wind, you know, it's 2 days away. It's not super highly likely, but there's a good chance, and it sort of continues the kind of random weather chaos that we've been seeing over the last week here as the rest have been going through. And it's definitely an interesting eventuality if, in the end, all of them would kind of run into each other there in 2 days, and basically be forced to almost restart there with, we would basically be having 6 boats, is it 6? Yeah. We would be having 6 boats together, Yoann in his non-foiler, together with only other foilers, so you'd be completely surrounded with other, you know, slightly older foilers, except for Roura, who would also be in there with his completely modern foiler. And that would mean that from that point they would almost have like a restart and then race to the finish from there, giving any of them a really interesting shot at maybe 13th place, which, you know, we started with 40, so 13 is still a very, very good place. So that's a really interesting and cool upset, I think, that might actually happen in a day or two. So that immediately, that also puts us with this group, so Roura and the rest. Now again, I don't think they'll catch up that soon. So it is quite likely that actually Yoann and the guys in front of him will get stuck in that place, and that they actually won't be there yet, since they just have been a bit slow. Alan has been doing a bit better. He's been quite fast. He posted another video of him just foiling along very nicely today. Check it out. Yeah, so he's doing good, but you know, it's one of the possibilities. Then, interesting news from the non-foiler or the dagger board peloton, as we call it, because after his iceberg encounter yesterday, we see that Conrad here bravely kept sailing very close to the ice line. I think he smelled maybe an advantage there. Or you could say used a bit maybe the fear of the other sailors. So it's quite tactical what he maybe did there. Because you can see that when kind of all the news about the ice happened yesterday, what do we see here? All of them reset their course and they jibed further to the north. So they got away from the ice exclusion zone. They took a little bit more distance from the ice exclusion zone. Except for Conrad. So he initially went up a little bit also, But then, for whatever reason, made another attack and decided to kind of go at it again. And he's now the sole sailor, much closer to the ice exclusion line than the rest. And that little tactical bit there actually got him in place 26. So he actually managed to sort of strategically pass basically, Garrick Soudet, Maurice Amadeo, Louis Duke, and we have Fauché is ahead of him. Yeah, so he managed to kind of pass, at least in the rankings, 3 boats compared to yesterday by technically just taking the lowest route there. So kind of an interesting bit by Conrad there. For the rest, the group just all sailing very nicely, no major breakages or anything like that. And if we look at the routages for them, it looks like their route also keeps going quite nicely kind of past the ice exclusion zone, so just close racing, but not any more crazy tacking, because the wind is kind of turning, coming sort of from the south from their back. So they should have actually, for the foreseeable time, very nice wind to make a very long, to go on a very long tacks towards the Cape. So that could be a very nice sort of gliding, foiling contest non-foiling actually contest for that whole group there. So you might say that maybe Arnaud Boiserius, being the one foiler, could get a bit of an advantage there still. I might come out as the winner of the group, save for Benjamin Ferret, who's a little bit further ahead. But technically speaking, it would probably benefit him the most in the end as far as circumstances go. Then we have Ollie on board of Tooth Good, like we already saw in the beginning. So yeah, he's being followed by this persistent high pressure, and it's still gonna go on. So the wind is gonna reach him eventually, but as you see, like he moves forward kind of with the wind, and it kind of keeps creeping with them. And though he does get a little bit more, you can see that it sort of stays annoyingly with him until, yeah, basically 24 hours or so from now, almost plus 50 hours actually from now, to really get out of it. So he still has some, struggling there in the low wind to do before that will get better. Then we have Jean-Jean Jou and Antoine Cornac. Antoine was also actually sailing along very nicely. It was very cold in his area also, explaining also the ice, of course, from yesterday. Just very cold on that area in the south right now. Check it out.
Froid. Froid. Allez, j'embrasse le froid pour vous.
Yeah, and last but again not least, we have the little battle here between Fabrice Amadeo and we have Manuel Cosin there, and behind Dennis van Wijnberg now reaching New Zealand, and you can see that they're starting to really run into that same sort of low wind area, in the same area where Ollie initially encountered one. And if we take the routages for them and look a little bit ahead, we see that, it's going to be pretty slow going for them, as they're also a bit mired in there, while Dennis seems to have pretty good wind. So yeah, maybe in like 48 hours or so, they could be a lot closer again to each other. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so that was it for the analysis today. Hope you enjoyed again. Please make sure to like, subscribe. Again, if you want me to do the long explanation of why we keep having these breakages in the race tomorrow, let me know in the comments. And enjoy your day, and see you in 24 hours. Ciao, Wolves!